You can tell by the music, Another Moment with Bob, brought to you by your friends at Offshore Drilling. Roy Orbison was right. Hey, Mike. On my 40th birthday, my younger sister gave me a coffee mug with a picture on it of a mouse singing, hi-ho, it's over the hill I go. It immediately became my favorite mug I was never going to use. I was going to keep it in pristine condition so I could give it back to her on her 40th birthday. But I almost didn't get the chance. When I went to retrieve it after 8 long years in storage, I found the handle of the mug had snapped off. Now it was time to see if all those crazy glue commercials were telling the truth. I repaired the mug, wrapped it up, and was able to re-gift it as a re-joke. But if someone had taken a sledgehammer to the mug and reduced it to a fine white powder, no amount of crazy glue would help. There would be no doubt that it was irrevocably broken, smashed to bits, and it would take some sort of deranged magical thinking to think that it could even be fixed. But what if I ignored the blatantly obvious and dedicated a little time every day to try and repair the mug? And even though my sister's 40th birthday had come and gone, I still tried each day to force a mound of powder back into being a functional coffee mug. You might say I was a little strange for even thinking about it, but as long as I kept my obsession a secret and continued to function normally in my day-to-day life, no one would be the wiser. But as soon as you found out that I'd spent almost 14 years at it, you definitely know I had blown my wheels. I do believe I fit the definition of suffering a psychotic break with reality. Psychotic break with reality means hearing, seeing, tasting, smelling, and feeling something that does not exist. Or believing something to be true that is false, fixed, and fantastic. Simply put, the person loses contact with external reality. I read an interview with Dr. Todd Essig, Ph.D., where he said, quote, people don't snap into psychosis, they slide. And they can slide in and out, back and forth. People can and do recover, sometimes temporarily and sometimes permanently. A psychotic break is not at all a Humpty Dumpty situation. People do get put back together again. End quote. Well, good news for me, because I've been sliding back and forth and in and out of psychosis for almost 14 years. It all started back in December 2000 when the Supreme Court shattered the United States by installing George W. Bush as president. And ever since then, I've been trying to figure out how many 50-gallon drums of crazy glue it would take to put it back together again. I have periods when I think something could actually be done. During these times, I am completely delusional. Just when I thought I had a handle on things, something terrible would happen and would crush everything to a finer powder. September 11th, the Patriot Act, the wars of aggression in Afghanistan and Iraq, another stolen election, torture in secret prisons, over 1 million dead with hundreds of thousands wounded, the largest theft of wealth in human history, the National Defense Authorization Act, and what else could possibly happen? Well, today, the Supreme Court took the control of the political process and gave it to the rich. The ideas that were the basis for the United States of America have been smashed smaller than subatomic particles. How's that for a reality check? You see, my long, slow slide into psychosis really began a long time ago when I embraced two concepts that were utterly false. I can't remember where I read this. Perhaps I just overheard it somewhere, but here it is. Act as if there was a revolution and your side won. At the time, that really appealed to me. Why not cut to the chase? So I thought, what the hell? I'll give it a try. And for the most part, it worked out pretty well for me. I ignored most of the BS that surrounded me and went ahead with my life. Little did I know this was a terrible idea. It was just a subset of a series of bad ideas that all fell under the umbrella of personal change. Personal change was the big thing at the time because people in my chronological age group, the dirty effing hippies, didn't really pull off the revolution. After all the riots and the head bashings, it was obvious that changing the system was really hard. So they decided to adopt this bumper sticker instead. Become the change you wish to see in the world. This was far easier to do, and you didn't have to worry about being tear-gassed. The second really bad idea was best described by Gloria Steinem. She said, quote, it was heady and exciting and naive, because we thought these injustices are so great. Surely if we just explain them to people, they will want to fix them. End quote. That kind of naivete is astonishing unless you come from the white privileged class. There, it's par for the course. And it's been the mindset of liberals for my entire life. It's behind that boneheaded platitude, speaking truth to power. As if somehow we clearly explain to the vicious thugs in power the damage they're doing, and they'll suddenly start playing nice. At best, it comes off like we the people are telling the elite we know the game they're up to. Well, they know the game too. It's called heads they win and tails we lose, and they do not give a good goddamn what we know because we still keep playing their game. Well, my chronological peer group went off and became the change they wished to see in the world, and I was living my one-man revolution. The serious psychopaths were hard at work, spending whatever amount of time and money it took to get what they wanted. Everything. Yeah, these are serious people. Like Sally Kirkland's character said at the beginning of Oliver Stone's JFK, these are serious effing guys. And now they've got it. They already own the government and the media, and as of today, our voices have been switched to mute permanently. The only voice from now on is the voice of money. So, to sum it up, it was over 14 years ago. That's when it was over. It was over 14 years ago. It was over in 2004. It was over in 2008. And just in, it's still over. Regards, Bob. Another moment with Bob, this one entitled Roy Orbison Was Right, brought to you by your friends at Offshore Drilling. Yeah, the delusion or whatever you want to call it, denial or avoidance of what's really happening, that, as we've talked about in this program before, or as I've talked about, that's it's an ego defense mechanism. It's something to keep distorted reality from driving you crazy. Just like Bob Alexander says, you have a fixed idea of what's going on out there, and you subscribe to that idea because if you really look at what's going on out there, you'll do one of two things. You'll either go insane or you'll do something that'll put you in jail, because we live in the United States of America. We don't live in Egypt. We don't live in countries where there can be an Arabic Spring. There's no such thing as an American Spring. There's no such thing as an American summer. There's no such thing as a peaceful revolution. There's no such thing. None of this exists. And to the people who absolutely are determined to hold on to that one last little sliver of hope, well, if I just put a little more effort into working through the system, I can be the change I did. Blah, blah. Are you serious? Well, let me challenge you. I know you're not a right-winger. You're a Democrat, or you're a liberal, or you're a progressive, or that's how you identify yourself. Let me challenge you. Seriously now, seriously, Give me an example of how you or we or the progressive movement in the past 35 years, past 50 years, have changed one single damn thing. Just email it to me. I don't care what it is. The financial structure, the social safety net, the environmental crisis, global warming, chemicals in our food. Give me an example. I'm begging you. Give me an example of where liberals sending $20 here and $20 there. I mean, even the great moment of the great black hope, Obama. What happened there? What did he say the other day? That the war in Iraq was justifiable? Give me an example. I'm begging you. I'm begging you. Because like Bob Alexander, I'm going goddamn crazy too. And crazy? Not crazy. Crazy? Not crazy. So give me something. Anything. I'm waiting. Ten before the hour. Coming up next hour, Paul Ryan and his new budget that was submitted yesterday. Paul Ryan, the Wisconsin smart guy who is the head of the House Budget Committee. No, it's much worse than you think. Regarding what I said before the last break, I know that my point of view on liberalism and the absolute death of progressivism in this country really pisses off a lot of people who still consider themselves to be progressives or liberals. And I think the reason is because all of us, were so brainwashed into believing that all we had to do was just organize and resist. How did that work? I mean, when you stop and think, I said, what have progressives accomplished? And a couple of people in the chat room and a couple of emails said, well, an acceptance of gays in the military or gays in society. Okay, that's very honorable and that's a good thing. Anything else? As far as gays in the military, I don't think that's a progressive victory. I think what that is the national security terror state deciding they need more bodies. Let's open the doors wider. But I digress. I've worked in, by saying worked, I mean I've put effort into several movements over the course of the last, 45, 50 years of my life. Started out with just some simple ban the bomb thing. I've talked about this when I lived in Richmond, Virginia, decades ago. I was in a park near the Richmond Professional Institute, which no longer exists. There's a park there. And one Sunday I was there with my wife at the time and baby, and we saw a couple of people with a tank of helium, I guess, and they were blowing up balloons that said, ban the bomb. Ban the bomb. And went over and introduced myself and said, what is this? And they took about 5 minutes to explain it to me, and I walked away with about 10 balloons. And, walked through the park handing out the balloon. Ban the bomb! And it grew from there, civil rights movement, because that was back in early to mid-'60s. Well, it had to be the mid-'60s. So civil rights, anti-nuke movement, anti-war movement, impeach Nixon movement, environmental movement. I did what I thought was necessary, and I watched thousands of people with me do it, or I with them. This is not self-referential. I was part of this organic mass of people Sometimes hundreds of thousands of people, like the December before the March invasion of Iraq back in 2003. Hundreds of thousands of people marched in the United States. Millions marched around the earth. And what happened? How'd that work out? Nothing happened to stop war crimes and mass murder by the leaders of the United States government. So like a lot of progressives, a lot of liberals, a lot of Democrats at one time, the old coalition Democrats, which is how I used to consider myself, really tried. But we got no backing from so-called rich liberals. We got no support from media, major media. We got nothing. But we kept trying. We got arrested. We got tear gas. We got our heads cracked. We got this. We got that. And what happened? Nothing. Nothing. Be the change that you want to see in the world. Oh, that's great. That's a great slogan. So where am I now, in case you're interested? Not that you are, but very simply, those kinds of tactics the prima facie evidence that they don't work is the fact that they don't work. It hasn't worked. So what do you do, Mr. or Ms. Activist? What do I do? Do we continue doing the same thing over and over and over again? Do we be like Bob Alexander trying to glue back together the shattered, crushed mug? Or do we try something different? What would that be, Mike? Well, I don't know how many years I've been talking about this. I know it's not going to happen. But if we could get 10% of the population into the streets and do nothing, not like the Arab Spring. You don't have to burn and loot and holler and scream and fire bombs and bullets and bombs and tear gas. You don't have to do that. You know what you have to do? Not a goddamn thing. Just put your body out there. Stop the machine. Stop it. This plan was laid out for all of us. When was it? 1962, Sproul Hall, University of California, Berkeley, free speech movement, Mario Savio. It's been sitting there, this idea, for 50 years. 10% of the population in the street doing absolutely nothing. How about 20% of the population? Dear God, that would be 60 million people. Woohoo! In the streets doing nothing what? Are they going to tear gas us all? Are they going to arrest us all? Are they going to declare us all unconstitutional? We'll be back after the break, and we're going to talk about Paul Ryan's budget. Stick around. I'm Mike Malloy.